Hello and welcome to That's the Spirit. I'm Father John Gatzak. Happy Father's Day in advance. We're just 1 week away from the celebration of Father's Day. And in many families, there's a certainty that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, like father, like son. Perhaps your dad passed on some of his traits to you. You have his eyes, or maybe his smile. He loved to read, and so do you. Just the other day, a woman said to me, "You remind me so much of your father." Well, I took that as a precious compliment. I'm not sure I have his eyes or his looks. What do you think? But I'd like to believe my dad passed on to me his business philosophy because he loved people and he served his customers well with honesty and total dedication. At times I fall short, but I'm still trying to live up to the lessons that my dad modeled for me. Yet one trait that my father never passed on to me, much to his disappointment, was his musical ability. He loved to play the accordion, and he was good. Not me. But today, I want to introduce you to a father and son with a different story. They are very much alike in their great musical ability and talent. So I'm very pleased to have with us this morning Nick Fradiani, father, and American Idol himself, Nick Fradiani, son. Welcome to you both.
Oh, hey, Father.
Hi, Father.
When did, Nick the Third, when did this musical ability transfer to Nick the Fourth?
I believe when he was little and I was playing shows and he would come to the shows, and by 5 years old he was on stage wanting to sing with me. And it began then with him knowing the words to Neil Diamond songs. And I think it was funny, I was picking him up at pre-K one time, and a teacher said to me, "Your boy's walking around saying, 'LA's fine, the sun shines most of the time.'" So I knew that stuff was going on in his head by then. And then as time went on, I could hear him singing parts to music, and I used to say to my wife, "My God, he has such great ears. That's incredible." And that's what I think the beginning. So I'd say 5, 6 years old, I knew that there was something special.
What's your recollection of that? Can you remember back then? The first time you were on stage with your dad?
I remember that. I don't remember the times he's talking about when I used to. I've seen pictures of it where I'd be on stage, mumbling nonsense, but I'd want to be up on that stage. But I do remember in about 4th grade, he came up, he performed, he was playing the piano, and much like we do now still, he was playing the piano and I was singing at a talent show at St. Mary's School in Brantford. So that was my first I remember being really nervous and that being my first kind of performance in front of people.
Did he push you into this career?
No, not at all. He was he was actually pretty passive when it came to music. It was more like that was his thing, and he was more, he would want me to listen to good music, but he would never really. I remember listening to rap and stuff in 8th grade, and he'd be going, "Well, how about you listen to the Beatles and Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen and stuff." So he was more into that rather than go in your room and play the guitar for 4 hours. He was like that when it came to sports. Right. He would be a little bit more pushy, and I think that's why I loved music so much, because there was no pressure in it. It was more of an enjoyable thing that I kind of would do on my own time and do it to calm myself down or just to enjoy it. And then it wasn't until much later that I said, I really like this, and I'm really happy when I do it, and I'm pretty good at it. I think I'm going to start. And that's when he started becoming way more involved, way later, when I was 18, 19, I'd say.
Now, you were not going to necessarily pursue a musical career. You were heavily into basketball, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, but I never was like, that's what I'm going to do, you know what I mean? I just really was really competitive in it and liked it. And then I went and played a little bit in school, in college. And then once that kind of stopped midway through college, that's when I kind of felt like I needed some identity, because it was always sports. And then I was 18, 19, and then that was no longer a thing. So then he gave me a guitar. I had always played the guitar, but he let me use one of his guitars to bring up to college.
Wow.
And I would just start playing. Yeah, that's big for him. But he gave me like you gave me one of your, not your best ones, the nylon Ibanez.
That's true.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
He's got quite the collection. But he did let me use that guitar, and I remember I was all excited because I learned how to read a guitar tab online, and I told him, Dad, I learned how to play Blackbird. I remember
That's
it was
right.
one of the, by the Beatles, and then it just started from there, and he would come up to my college, and we'd play together, and so yeah, he was always a big part of me learning music.
But you never really pushed.
No, I didn't.
Why?
Because I don't know. I think I was so crazed about him being an athlete because I was the worst athlete that ever walked the earth. So I think that when I saw him do well at that, I was kind of like a lot of fathers living through him with sports, you know. But music in our house was so always, and we played around. We have a piano, and it was always about songs and music. And I used to sing to him as a kid, teaching him songs, like not so much teaching him, but going, did you ever hear this? Listen to this. Or, you know, I would come into his room at night, instead of telling a bedtime story, I would play him a song as a little boy. And I think that's how it just manifested that way. But it was always wonderful. It wasn't like, you got to do this. You know?
If I were to ask you, Nick, what traits your dad passed on to you besides his musical talent, what would you say?
That's a good question. I think he's a really motivated guy, especially when it comes to his music. He's never given up on it, and I think that's something, his persistence in doing what he loves has always been something that I've looked up to, and something that I hope that I can continue to have. He's really kind to people. A lot of, you know, sometimes I'll even be like, all right, and you know, he'll always talk to everybody, and everybody knows him, and he's really good at making the person he's talking to feel like they are
special.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a cool trait that I've always tried to have. His organizational skills, I hope to not, you know, I've gotten some of those skills.
No, I know those.
Yeah, you've seen how many times he loses his keys. I'm the same way, so I got that trait. That's not, but he's just a really good dad and a good guy and a good family guy. He's been really good to me and my sister and my mother, and I hope that I could also use that trait. I'm not a father or a husband, but I hope one day that I could, you know, emulate that as well.
And Nick, if you're looking at your son, Nick, and you're saying, yeah, he's just like his dad, what would be some of those traits that you think he has that you've communicated or passed on to him?
I think besides we like the same sports team,
which
is the Yankees, of
all
course.
right.
And we also, I think what I love the most about him is his abilities in music, how he can hear things. I believe that even his ears are stronger than mine. He hears things and stuff that I would go, wow. And I'm really impressed how he has a God-given talent that, you know, you would say it's inherited, but he's worked hard in the last 5 to 7 years, like immensely, and I'm really proud of that. He's so motivated, but I don't think so much from what I taught him. He just knows what he wants in a song, and I try to intervene and I get nowhere anymore. So it's all good, and I'm proud of that.
Where does it come from that propelled you to want to be, first of all, in America's Got Talent, and then in American Idol? They gave you the confidence. Where does that confidence come from?
I don't really know. It's funny. I think it was kind of like a little bit of a blind confidence. Like I always kind of had. Like I think I'm better now than I was then. But then when you're younger, I was in my 20s, and I just had this idea where I just knew that I was gonna make it in music some way, and I didn't even really know how, but I always knew I would. And I don't know where that really came from. And then all the way American Idol and America's Got Talent, that just kind of fell in our laps, where I was in a band and we would put music up online, and somebody from the show asked us if we would be on the show, and then that person ended up working on American Idol a year later and asked me if I wanted to do that. So that just kind of fell in my lap a little bit, but I guess the confidence just came from, I don't know. I really don't have an exact answer for it, but I'm happy. I don't get very nervous in front of people, and I think that maybe helped. And I just knew that I could do it. I knew I was a capable musician, and I just tried my best when I went out there.
Now, it took more than just the support of your dad. It took your mother's support and your sister Kristen's support as well.
Family was huge in the whole.
Can you talk a little bit about that, the support that they gave you during American Idol too?
Oh, I could say, I probably wouldn't have said it as much right after because I wanted to be. It was all about me. But without my family, I would have never had a shot. Especially my dad. He was like running a campaign with American Idol. I mean, he really had the state's support. He really,
absolutely,
you know, and I think that showed. There's so many people. Even now, when I play shows, there's so many people that ask about my father, because he was so visual and was so out in the open during that time. And it's, you know, our parish used to, you know, all the different churches would be talking about it. He would go from all different towns. He's from East Haven, and so everybody from East Haven, and then I was from Guilford, and then all these different towns that we had connections to were so brought together, and it was cool. I think sometimes I don't realize it, but when we were on the show, a lot of people have become friends through the whole American Idol thing and following, you know, what was going on at the time. People that maybe needed some friends or hope to make new relationships really were able to during that time. It was really cool to see these people, and who are now friends years later. So.
Well, he got us on WJMJ Radio,
and
total support of you and what was going on there.
Absolutely.
Plus, he was knocking on heaven's door.
Yep.
Knocking on heaven's door. Do you want to talk a little bit about how God was there for you? And
well, if you saw me on the every time, I was constantly clapping with one fist because I had rosary beads in the other.
Really?
And I took them every single show.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and and I would drive my wife crazy because we left to go and I didn't have them. You know,
he was more nervous than me, so
yeah,
he needed those rosaries.
I needed the beads, but I was.
So you were flying back and forth to California.
Correct. I still was teaching haircutting at the time, which I don't do anymore. I've just devoted the rest of my life to music, but I was going back and forth, and it was so stressful. And then things were happening where, I think I spoke this to you, but I prayed the rosary a lot to the Blessed Mother, and what had happened was the day he got on the show, the top 24 was the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. Then, as it was going through the whole thing, when we were in church, and I remember Father Shanley saying at our church, saying, you know, Nick needs your prayers and your votes, but right now I think he needs your votes. He said, we want to get ready because also at the end of the Mass, the day, he goes, the next holy day is going to be when Mary appeared to the children of Lady of Fatima. So that was the day of the finale. So my mind was going, oh my goodness, you know. And then here's was the clicker was when they made the ice cream in town. It was called Fradiani Frenzy and everything, and we had to have donations. So Nick decided with his mom, who had lost her younger brother years ago, they decided on the St. Jude's Hospital, that was his charity where we were donating the money. I was going to this church in Hollywood all the time to say the rosary, and right before the day he left, I went to say goodbye to the church, and I've never noticed, and I looked down at the headstone, and the Blessed Mother statue was donated from Danny Thomas. That was his church. So it was just a lot of things were playing into it, and I was like, whoa, you know, and I gave me a little bit of confidence that night going into the finale that something good was going to happen, you know. But my faith did get strong through that. I think it helped me from not going.
I got to ask you a question, though, all right? Because you're very talented. Your son is very talented, extremely talented. He's the American Idol. Is there ever any jealousy or rivalry between you? Be honest. Okay.
I don't think there's a jealousy. I think in music there's always a weird between anybody that gets on stage, or you always, you know I've seen videos of a recent one with Tom Petty playing with Prince, and they were doing While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and Jeff Lynne and all these tremendous musicians, and you could tell they were all trying to outdo each other, but wanting to have a great show. So I think it's just like anything, you want to do your best, but I wouldn't call it really a rivalry or jealousy. I think he's proud of me. I'm proud of him when he does well with anything. he supports me more than anybody, so, and I'm the same way. So I wouldn't call it jealousy, but I think on stage you always want to do as best as you can, and if that's,
When we sing this duet, a lot of times, it's his show, and then I get this little part, and then people yahoo a little bit when I start singing. And I think they just like the fact that, wow, the dad's singing with the son, and that's really what it's about. But I wouldn't call it a rivalry.
But it's more than that, though, Nick. It's not only dad singing with the son, is that dad and son are very good.
He could still hang with a
The-
32-year-old. His voice is not his voice has not gone away at all, which I hope that. Remember, you were asking about the traits. I hope I get that one, because his voice may have gotten possibly a little stronger over the last 10 years.
I think this experience happening with him motivated me to want to even work harder and get better. So I think that I would say I learned from him too. And he teaches me stuff now, because I would be kind of lost in the darkness of the old way, and I've understood the new way of music now, and I owe it all to him. I listen to artists that he likes. I would probably never have done that.
Well, back in your day, you were making LPs.
Right, correct.
Now,
nobody even knows what that even means anymore. Right.
33 1/3.
That's it. That's right. But, and then, but again, to have this ability to be able to, when he opened for Bon Jovi, and I got to be in the room with him on that stage, it was probably a huge highlight in my life, and it was thanks to him to be able to do something like that. And I owe him a lot for that, because, you didn't have to drag his daddy around all the time, but we have this connection that I'm thinking.
Has this brought you closer together?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
I think we were always close over the years with different stuff, and yeah, I think anytime you go through something like the craziness of Idol, I mean, it was probably the longest I wouldn't actually have been around him, though, was that time, which was kind of funny, because after I had lived in Connecticut my whole life, and I'd see my dad at least a couple of times a week, even when I wasn't living home anymore. And then after Idol, I was gone for about 8 or 9 months, and then after that, I moved to Nashville and was living there for a while. So it was actually, we were probably separated the most, my family. And but yeah, we stayed close throughout it, and it's definitely something now when families get together, we always talk about the funny times when I was on the show, and because it was crazy what they were doing, especially him. He was flying, I mean, more than I've ever seen anybody do cross-country flights and then wake up and go. I used to tell him, Dad, you don't have to come, you got it. And then I remember one week he didn't come, and I had a bit of an off performance, and he goes, no, I got to come now, because it was crazy.
It was true,
and he came every show. It was really amazing.
Well, I think that all of us and those who are watching are probably in awe of the fact that you've got such a special relationship with each other, and that you've bonded together throughout this whole experience. And we continue to wish you well. And one of these days, I'm going to get you both to do the television mass together to sing, and we'd love to see that happen.
I'd love it too. I think we're going to put out a Christmas album together, an EP next December. It'll probably come out before then, so maybe around that time we could do something. That would be a good idea.
Dave, you talk about the show. We're going to probably do a show.
Oh, we're going to do Christmas shows, and so yeah, that'd be a cool time to be able to do it.
If we're going to do a father-son Christmas thing coming up this coming Christmas, so.
We look forward to that. And in terms of doing something nice for Father's Day, I thank you both for being with us. And our regards to your wife, your mother, Liz, and your sister, Kristen.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
They're a big part of this as well.
Sure.
Well, Pope Francis has urged all dads in the world to stick by their children's side, teaching them, guiding them, and loving them. Every parent thinks that their kid is the best at everything, the best soccer player, the best student, the best accordion player, or an American Idol winner. In this case, it's the truth. Let's close out our pre-Father's Day segment with Nick Fradiani and his dad performing Leonard Cohen's Alleluia, recorded at St. George Church in Guilford.
Well, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall and the major lift, the barefoot king composing hallelujah. faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to the kitchen chair, she broke your throat and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. 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 And maybe there's a God above, but all I ever learned from love was how to shoot somebody who outdrew you. And it's not a cry that you hear at night, it's not somebody